Hi everyone, my name is Lisa, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about my pickle paper. My subject is on pickles. Did you know that Cleopatra endorsed the consumption of pickles, saying that they were at least partly responsible for her beauty, or that with the help of fermentation, British sailor Captain James Cook conquered scurvy by bringing sauerkraut onto his ship for the sailors to eat? Fermentation is the oldest type of biotechnology. The history of it can be traced from East Asia and China, and then came to Europe around the 1500s. However, there is a record of pickles being around since biblical times. When the majority of people think of pickles, they think of the inclusions they use on their juicy hamburgers, but pickles, as said by its definition, are anything preserved by salt or acid. This could include any vegetable, fruit, or raw material. The most common raw material to pickle is the cucumber. It's no surprise that 50% of the U.S. crop of cucumbers go to the production of pickles. In addition to those statistics, less than half of the pickles out on the market do not go through fermentation, at least on purpose. There are three main types of pickles: fresh packed pickles, refrigerated pickles, and genuine or processed pickles. The main difference is whether the pickles are packed in vinegar or if they're packed in a salt solution called a brine, which creates the environment needed for the fermentation to be activated, whether it be with natural microorganisms or with a starter culture. Although there is no doubt fresh and refrigerated pickles are delicious, the fermented pickles not only come with complex flavors and aromas, they also come with tons of health benefits. Fresh packed pickles and refrigerated pickles are packed in jars and acidified with vinegar. The fresh packed pickles are then heat treated to destroy any microorganisms, and they are shelf stable and could last for years. They are the pickles that you see on the shelves at the grocery stores most often, and once they're open, obviously they have to be refrigerated, but they could sit on those shelves for a very long time. The refrigerated pickles the process is the same as fresh packed pickles, except they are not heat treated. So they're just kept in the refrigerator. And these are most often the ones made in people's homes because it's a quick and easy process. However, their shelf life is limited to just a couple weeks. But it would be super easy to make them yourself. You put in whatever spices or flavorings you would like. Neither the refrigerated pickles or fresh packed pickles have the microorganisms to promote the health factors. It is worth noting that refrigerated pickles could go through some sort of fermentation, but it would be present as a symptom of spoilage. Fermented pickles use a selective environment with salt to encourage acidifying bacteria to grow. Those bacteria, which are the result of fermentation, have health benefits. As Sandor Katz says about the aim of refrigerated pickles and fresh packed pickles versus fermented pickles, they destroy rather than cultivate. Vegetable fermentation typically use natural fermentation versus starter cultures due to the complexity of the microorganisms that have part in the natural fermentations. It makes it hard to repeat. Natural fermentation uses the indigenous microflora to initiate the fermentation. The process of fermentation in vegetables is a complex timeline of microorganisms that grow and create an environment that could kill themselves off, but allows for other microorganisms to take over and grow. They then grow and then they'll hand off to another. It's like a huge relay race. One goes and goes until they can't go anymore, and then they hand off the baton, and eventually one will go to another and they'll finish the race. The fermented pickles do have a very long shelf life and have a very unique flavor profile and texture. Heterofermentation is advantageous over its counterpart homofermentation due to the fact that not only does it create lactic acid bacteria as a byproduct, it produces lots of other ones, including acetic acid, CO2, and ethanol. Heterofermentation leads to a finished good with a more unique flavor profile that we look forward to when eating delicious fermented goods. However, microorganisms that use homofermentation allow the fermentation process to get through to completion. This is due to their ability to grow in higher acidities. Once a fermentation is initiated by leuconostoc mesenteroids or other common heterofermenters, including L. plantarum, glucose and fructose are metabolized, and lactic acid, acetic acid, ethanol, mannitol, and CO2 are created. Once the acidity decreases, homofermentative microorganisms take over. The low pH environment that is created by lactic acid bacteria is a mechanism that inhibits bacteria that could cause unwanted degradation to product. There's a chance other microorganisms could be present due to cross-contamination. However, pathogenic bacteria could never compete with indigenous microorganisms as long as the environment is kept and created correctly. The most important component, besides the raw material to be fermented, is the salt. The salt is the ingredient that allows for creating the specialty environment for lactic acid bacteria. The salt levels make it extremely hard and almost impossible for other microorganisms to grow. In addition to the salt creating that environment, which allows for lactic acid bacteria to initiate fermentation, it also allows for the cucumbers to keep their crispness, increase preservation, and allow for fermentation to happen in the vegetable's natural juices. Even though fermenting vegetables seems like a foolproof process, like anything, there is possibility of spoilage. The spoilage of fermented vegetables is usually due to the production of different acids or CO2. These products can be produced by unwanted microorganisms that are allowed to grow, or it could be produced from the microorganisms that are supposed to be there. When the pH of the brine is allowed to increase and become more basic, the number of microorganisms that can grow and create spoilage issues also increase in number. The most common issue in pickle fermentation is termed bloating. Bloating is when the pickles start floating and become slightly engorged, bigger. The cause of this is when excessive CO2 is created and causes excessive gas pressure inside the cucumber, so it just blows out a little. The CO2 can be produced by heterofermentative bacteria, most likely, but could also be from yeast and coliforms. The CO2 may also be produced by the malolactic acid fermentation or from cucumber respiration of L. plantarum. Once the bloating has happened, it can't be saved, so in manufacturing it becomes a huge loss. The best solution to this is to flush the vessel with nitrogen gas. While the pickle industry is very well researched, there are constantly emerging technologies that could create advancements in the industry. One of the new areas of research that could impact the fermentation industry is also relatively new for all of the food and agriculture industry. It's been pretty widely discussed lately in the news. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, everyone's probably heard of them by now. They're a really great example of biotechnology, which represent a possibility of being able to increase agriculture efficiency or improve nutrition, but it also does have possible risks to consumers or the environment. The methods of genetic modification could be useful with fermentation when used to modify microorganisms that are associated with starter cultures. Genetic modification uses the whole microorganism or its makeup or certain components to create a more efficient powerhouse. Genetic modification and engineering has focused in on either the microorganisms associated with starter cultures or the specific enzymes that are counted upon for fermentation. The genetic engineering could help increase productive capability, or it could manipulate strains to get rid of objectionable flavor, color, odor, textures like slime, could help keep harmful products at bay, byproducts, or even spores. Although the genetic modification definitely has plenty of potential to be able to use genetically modified organisms, they must be approved for regulatory agencies, and to be approved, they have to be extensively studied for possible side effects. There have not been any microorganisms approved due to it still being a relatively new area of research with GMOs, and due to the necessary studies to prove safety being complex. So that was all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this summary, and I look forward to watching your guys' videos. Pickles are great!